Welcome, everyone. This is our Thursday morning production call, and we have a good one. I'm excited about this one. A bunch of new agents, and just sometimes it's funny as we run appointments, the longer we do it, we start adding, right, book of the month, different habits randomly, right? And sometimes they're not the best habits. Sometimes they actually start hurting us. So we're going to talk about, right, killing your sales through some of the words that we use, and then also the happiness advantage of being excited. Um, right, we did a live appointment yesterday, right, and Cody got to hear, and he was just, sometimes we forget of the excitement and the energy that we bring to an appointment because he was blown away. The client was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." He's like, "How do you get them to say that?" Right. And it's a lot to do with the energy that you're bringing to the appointment. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll get started. Hold on. So first, I love to always talk about, right, this is an hour-long call, and I want to make sure it brings you the most value as much as possible. So what I love to teach is make sure you have a pen and notepad. We're going to talk a lot of specific words, how to use them, how not to use them. There is no way you're going to remember it, I promise. So make sure you're taking notes on how we're using them. And then also, what we don't want you to do is change your entire appointment based on what you hear today, right? You are already helping families. Just take a couple of things. A good practice is about two or three of them and start applying them to your appointment. The hard part is actually using them today, right? And moving forward. Do not sit on these calls and get all this great information, right? And this is for any SoundCloud training, anything you're doing. Listen to it, but then not apply it. It's the same thing as you didn't listen to it, right? So just make sure you make it a habit to introduce these things to your appointment, right? So that it can help you out. And then what we humbly ask is if anything helped you today and help a family, right, in the next or in the next week, if y'all can also post it on Band, right? We do, this is a large organization and we work really well together. So if y'all can post, hey, what helped you help a family in Band, it really does help other agents because they can see what you use and they can apply it to their appointment. So that's how we work together. So we will get started. First, I want to talk about the energy you bring, and it kind of ties to, right? Are you reading something in the morning? Do you have really good practice of a routine in the morning? But it's all about the energy, right? Remember, a great term is we always say match the client's energy, right? Like if they're, a little, if they curse a lot, curse with them, right? If they right are leaning towards a little more calmer demeanor, right? Same thing. But also remember, apart from matching their energy, they're also going to match yours, right? And I think sometimes we forget about that. So we're supposed to match their energy to take control of the appointment, right? Like that's how we get them to trust us. That's how we get them to follow us. And that's very important. So, whatever energy they're at, our job is to match it. Once we've matched it, they're also now mirroring you. That means you have taken control, and that means you can take the energy wherever it needs to go. And because the energy has to move up and down depending on the subject that y'all are talking about through the appointment, right? And what I mean by that is matching their energy, right? First, to get their trust, right? If you sound like them, if you're matching their energy, that you can tell right away, right? It's like talking to a friend. But now you get to take the energy where it needs to go. Serious, right? Like, let's talk about your budget. Let's go over any health conditions, right? Be empathetic, right, about it. Of if they have any health conditions that are major, right? And then also match their energy of serious, right? When you're going through their budget, right? And like, oh, okay, wow, this is what's coming in. If something happens, right? Like that's not a good position that we're gonna leave, right, your spouse in. And right. So matching that energy and then excitement of energy of when you're showing options because you get to solve their problem. Right. And I think that's one that's missed a lot of energy controlling, right? Again, you match their energy, then you control it through the appointment, right? With in empathy of any health conditions, and serious about going through their budget, right? And then excitement of you get to solve that problem, right? And what I mean by that is when we're talking about options for them, right? Sometimes I just know, right? I'm just giving y'all what we see daily through all our agents and even what I experienced as a new agent, which was when I had an older couple or they were sick and I couldn't show them the mortgage payoff. I had low energy because I was like, man, I'm going to show them a $10,000 policy of Living Promise or Eagle Select, and it's a $400,000 mortgage. My energy was down, right? And it's $400 a month, Don, right? Like my energy was down versus it should have been very high, right? Because I should have been excited that I get to present them with a solution to their problem, right? And like the couple that I helped yesterday, right? That was their thing, right? Like she didn't work. He was a truck driver. He brought in good income. And even though it was a little bit pricier than what their budget allowed, right? Because they didn't have much left over afterwards, it was I had to be excited, right? It was like, man, I get to help you with this. Like, hey, I have some great options versus going into it and be like, well, I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you what we call it is payment protection or equity protection because I'm already sad that I'm not showing them the full mortgage payoff, right? And what I want y'all to pay attention to me as I'm doing this training today, listen to my energy, right? I'm doing it on purpose so that y'all can hear how I'm just bringing down the energy, right? Because I was a little sad about, man, so I'm gonna have to show y'all some, right? Listen to what I said. I'm gonna have to show y'all, right? More mortgage protection, but as a equity protection and mortgage payments. Or hey, I get to show y'all, how to protect yourselves, and I'm gonna make sure, right? Mary is very well protected. Nothing's going to happen to her because we're going to find a solution. And I'm excited about it, right? We control that energy. And I think it's very important, right? And I want to go through that again for you. Remember, when we get on the appointment, our job is to match their energy. Doesn't mean that's where we stay. We match their energy to build a relationship and trust. Once we match their energy, then it's our responsibility to control it because now once we're matched, realize they're also mirroring you, right? So that means you have control. And now if you go down, they go down in energy. If you go up, they go up because you've met them at a point, right? So remember, this is super important. Your job is to match their energy and then control it throughout the appointment. And I love to talk about that, right? So first, you're going to go through health conditions, empathy, right? If that you can't just go, you can't just say, oh, okay, you had cancer last year, okay, great, right? That's not a good thing to say. You got to match their energy, right? It has to be like, oh man, and anything after that, like, are you cleared? How long have you gone after, right? And them truly, right, understanding that you care, right? Because you should, right? This is the family we're going to help. And so now you take their energy, right? Of what I call empathy, right? Any health conditions. And then if they're healthy, it's exciting, right? Like, sweet. I mean, so when I meet a 65-year-old or a 62-year-old and they tell me they're on no medication, they're perfectly, I'm congratulating them, right? Like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, no health conditions at 62. You should be proud of yourselves. Like that is awesome. Y'all, it sounds like y'all take care of yourself. And I'm complimenting them, right? I'm controlling that energy, right? And same thing if they have any health conditions, right? I'm saying I'm sorry, right? How's it going? How are the treatments? Have y'all taken care of that? Nothing since then. Be proud of that, right? Like you have to be emotionally attached to them on whatever they're bringing you there, right? And then you control the next one is going to be serious energy, right? Because serious is we're going to go over their budget, right? And you have to get serious here because at least from my experience, I was embarrassed. For me, when I was brand new as an agent, it was embarrassed emotion, right? Because for being Hispanic, we were taught not to ask another grown man their budget, right? Like Don, I would never say, hey, how much money are you bringing in a week, a month? How much is in your savings account, Don? Right? Like that was just a huge no. You don't do that. It's disrespectful, right? But we had to get into serious mode here in our appointment, and we have to ask those questions, right? So you also have to be right. You have to have a serious tone, like, okay, well, hey, Amber, James, let's go ahead and go into some budget again, right? It's not to be nosy, it's just to see if you even need this coverage, right? So I'm gonna ask y'all some right questions that usually make me feel a little weird, Amber, but I want to make sure I do the best job for you. So and again, you can even describe the emotion that you're about to go to. So I want to get a little serious right now, Amber. Okay, so I know you do this for work. Income coming in monthly, what does that look like, right? How much income is coming in? And then you start breaking it down. James, how much do you bring in? Okay, well, let's dig into the bills a little. I just want to understand if you even need this coverage, or I want to make sure I put the right coverage in place, James. So let's go into detail on that budget, right? Outside of your mortgage, what are we paying? Right? What's your electric bill? What's your water bill? And right, and then you have to prompt them sometimes because you have to be serious, right? Because they're trying not to be serious here, right? Because they're trying to just give you a number, but like, no, let's kind of hone that in, right? And how we stay serious in that tone is explaining, right? So hey, Amber, James, between you two, y'all are bringing in 10,000 a month. Looks like an expenses going out is 6,000. So do y'all have this? Are y'all looking at the same thing? Do we have 4,000 leftover budget? Right. And normally the first time you tell them, they're like, no, I wish. I'm like, okay, right. Again, they weren't that serious, but I'm gonna take it serious. So I'm controlling it. Right. So my tone is like, well, let's get a little bit, let's hone that in and make sure it's exactly what it should be. What else did we miss? Right. But listen to the tone. I sound serious about the topic. Right? I don't sound nervous, right? Because that used to be me, right? Asking money questions. I used to be like, well, and then I'd get so nervous, Don, I would just kind of let it go. Well, okay, I guess that's enough. Like, no, this is a serious topic, right? Think of it as now I'm the bank guy trying to prove you for credit because it's the same thing. We're the insurance person trying to prove them for coverage. So it's the same thing, right? The creditor doesn't just say, "Oh, it's okay, that much income, we'll be fine." And how much debt do you have? Like, nah, we'll approve you. No, we won't. The insurance company won't. Mutual of Omaha or America will say no real quick if we don't get the proper information, right? So it's the same thing here. You got to be serious. Well, let's dig into this budget a little bit. I want to make sure it's the right thing for y'all, right? And again, but I'm serious about it. My tone is they can hear like, hey, Joe's not playing around. He really wants to solve this for us, right? Or he really wants this information correctly. Again, be careful with the way you sound. If you sound nervous, if you sound scared, right? If you don't sound confident, right? They're not. They will very easily say, yeah, well, why do you need this? Why do you need to know this? Right? I used to hear that a lot. Why do you need to know this, Joe? Right? And it was like, okay, wait, hold on. Like it's because I want to make sure I get you approved. These are some of the serious questions. Again, use the word. These are some of the serious information that I need to know so that I can make sure because maybe you don't even need this done and we can get you off the phone real quick. Right. And then because we're gonna dig into, hey, how much money's in your savings account? That's probably still to this day the most painful question I have to ask, right? And I asked it yesterday, and they told me after they got into their new home, they had $1,500 in their savings. $1,500 in their savings. She doesn't work. She's a housewife. He makes, I think he was making a little over 5,000 a month. And that means Godfrey, he's a truck driver, so there's no benefits there. He's gone tomorrow. There's no income for her. She doesn't have a month's worth of income or worth of budget in her bank account, right? So we're serious about that. And I'm right when we're in that tonality, it's like, well, Amber, James, um, I want to make sure, right? Every family's a little bit different. So, I want to make sure I help y'all properly. James, you're bringing in 6,000, right? Amber, you're not working. Looks like we have about a little over 1,400 or about 1,400 left over after bills. And I know we're putting about $300 into savings. Does that sound about right? Okay, great. And so looks like what I see here, right, is Amber, we're in a bad spot. James is gone tomorrow. Like, what do y'all have planned? What's in place? Serious, right? And it's amazing. The husband jumped in like, wow, Joe, that's exactly why we're doing this. Like, I want to make sure she's not in a bad spot. He told me that. I'm like, okay. So, and just, I want to make sure, right, James? So any of your income moves over, I'm still serious. I'm gonna poke the bear of serious. Like Joe or James, right? Any of your income, you're gone tomorrow. Does that carry over to her? And it's like, no, right? And I want them in that spot because I need them to tell me they want me to move forward. Because right here at this point, right, emotionally, right, and tonality, this is where I know if I need to move forward or not, or I can end the appointment. This is usually right at the end of your script, pretty close before you're showing options, right? And it's like, well, looks like we should put something in place today. Think of the serious, like, do you understand how serious that question is? Like, Don, it looks like we should put coverage in place today. And he's like, yeah, that we need to do that today, Joe. Right? Like that's such a serious tone, right? And emotion right there. And that's how you get them to get apps right there and then. Right. So again, controlling that emotion or the energy, right? Because look, I was serious there. And now the next emotion is I'm going to be super excited. Right. That's how we get them to say, right. I wrote it down because it was funny. Cody was like blown away. Right. He literally said, "Oh, wow, that sounds amazing." Because he was healthy, he was a truck driver. Those are some of my favorite clients. That means they go to the doctor once a year because they got to go get tested for their license, right? For their CDL. So those are some of my favorite clients. And I was like, well, perfect. I'm like, look, you don't have any health conditions. Guess what? I'm excited. Guess what, James? We're gonna be able to cover the entire mortgage and more than likely get you living benefits. So if God forbid something happens to you, because his wife had a heart attack 2 years ago. And I'm like, so just like, right, your wife had experience, imagine getting a check, right, for about 80%, right? Because we're going to look at the full mortgage for you, James, and you're going to have about $131,000 in living benefits. Literally, his mouth opened and he was like, oh my God, oh wow, that sounds amazing. But I got excited, right? I went from serious to excited, like, oh my, I'm like, I'm gonna be able to help you and get you exactly what you want, right? But my energy got excited. I got excited and I get to help you with, we're going to pay the full thing off for her. God forbid you pass away. And guess what? You're also going to, and guess what, right? I'm excited. And guess what? You're also going to have living benefits. So if something happens to you because you're the only income coming into the home, we're going to get you a check for about $130,000. He was like, oh my God, wow. I'm like, now let's just go, right? My job next is to go over the options, show you some of these prices. Remember, your job is to tell me what you're comfortable with, right? But again, excited, right? Like, and James, Amber, right? Don't be shy. Go ahead and tell me, right? If we need to lower it, increase it. Remember, we can get you more coverage because you don't have any other life insurance in place, right? So you tell me where you're comfortable with budget wise. That's going to be your job next. But I'm excited to hand it off to them, right? Again, I'm bringing them the energy of what's next, right? So when I start talking numbers, they're not sad, right? Versus, do you get to the options and are you like, okay, well, sounds like you could have done everything right up to there, but if you stayed at serious, it's probably not a good place to be when you're showing options, right? Because if you stayed at listen to this energy, well, so it sounds like we should put something in place, and they say yes, and then now it goes to, well, okay, so we're going to show you, right, some options of coverage that'll pay the full thing off. And I'm going to show you some of the prices and we'll be able to, right, adjust and make sure, right, it's a good fit for you. But listen to how at this point, now that we're talking numbers, serious sounds stressed, right? So you have to be able to change your energy of when you're going to options, you're now excited about going over options. And James, Amber, I don't know if y'all want to add anything there that you do.
It's important there, right? Just making sure that when you are excited that you're smiling.
Smiling, that's a good one.
Because if you're like, oh yeah, I can get you all the coverage in the world, they don't want, they're like, what's wrong with your face?
That's good. I'm gonna poke on Troy, right? When Troy started, me and Jeff were working with him and we're running Zoom appointments, and he was like, man, everyone just tells me no. And I remember I'm like, well, let's look at you running an appointment. And when we saw him watch an appointment, this is just Troy. This is the way he talks, but he was like this. So when he was talking, he was doing this right here, and right. So look, what does this tell you? I'm stressed, right? So that's a great point, right? Make sure again, lighting's clear, you're smiling, you're right. Again, hair done, right? Just look proper, but you have to make sure you're bringing good energy and good vibes. This is not good, right? Also, this movement is not good, right? So, like when we used to be in face to face, kneecap to kneecap, they would teach us do not sit at the end of the table and have a husband and wife sit on the two sides, because as you were talking to them, you were already giving the gesture of no, right? So the entire time you were talking to them, you were giving them a no gesture. So you were taught to sit on the side so that you can look at them both this way. And when you were explaining stuff, you were always doing this. So if you ever see us run an appointment, right, we're doing this. Like, yeah, it sounds like we should put this in place, right? Hey, you know what? I'm so glad, right? Like now I get to help you with these options. My job today is to help you go over the coverage, right? I work with all the insurance companies. So my job is to find you the best options. Like I'm saying yes the entire time, right, of going through this. And there's a lot of science in that, of making sure, right, you're giving them gestures already of getting approved, and going through, right, again, approval and then saying yes,
That's
right?
a
So
good
bringing
one.
that energy.
I even do that when we're doing the role on purpose, so like matching it. I'm nodding my head because does that sound okay to you? And they're like, yes, it does. Because they
Yeah,
match your energy too. And you're already getting it's easier to get a yes because you're
right.
basically controlling
And
telling.
I love that, James, right? Like think about this. When you're showing options and you're going over prices and you say, hey, does this work for you? Do this. I promise you, you will get more. Just that gesture alone. Like, hey, it looks like we should put, this is right, $250 a month, and that'll get you the coverage. Does that work for you, Rick? I bet you just doing that one movement today into your appointments, you get more yeses because they're doing this versus having the energy of, right. What does your face look like, right? Do you sound a surprise, right? Like Mickey, it's $250. Like look at my face, like I'm scared, right? Like you got to make sure you're not bringing that energy, right? When you're talking about options, it's exciting, right? But not scared. It's just exciting that you get to show them something that's going to protect them, right?
And
Again, these are still real families.
with what you just said there, Joe, right? You're not shopping with your wallet. So although a $200 a month monthly premium might be scary for you, for them it's exactly what they need.
Right? And the topic on that, right, is be excited about the price. So I have this written down. Be excited about the price. Remember, if you haven't heard the SoundCloud audio Emotional Labor, go listen to that one. It's in Symmetry SoundCloud, Emotional Labor. We don't make money physical, right? We're not out there cleaning cars, shoveling dirt. Our job is to be emotional. Like the more emotion you bring to an appointment, right, the more impact you have. The more impact you make in the home, the more impact your bank account's going to have. And so I have this written down. Be excited about the price. The larger the policy, and I would write this down for all of y'all, right? Be excited about the price. And then right under that, write this. The larger the policy, the more the impact. The larger the policy, the more the impact. You should not be scared of a $300-400 a month policy. You should be excited that that's what you have to show them. Remember, we don't decide what we have to show them. Our job is to get them the most amount of coverage for the least amount of premium based on their age, health, and budget. Now, age and health is what's going to determine what we have to show them, right? And so you should be excited if you're having to show a $200-300 policy, because that means you're bringing way more impact. Because if it's a more expensive policy, it's either a lot more coverage or they have a lot more health conditions, right? If it's a bigger policy, it's a lot more coverage or they have a lot more health conditions. That means you are bringing way more impact to that family, because that means they have health conditions. They are more, right? It's more probable that they're going to pass sooner than later, right? Even though we don't know that, but that's just probability. That's why it costs more, right? That's why you have to go to AIG. That's why you have to go to Eagle Select, because they're not in the healthiest conditions. You are bringing more impact. You are protecting that family when, trust me, more than likely, a lot of times you are not the first person talking to them. They have tried. They just couldn't find the right coverage, or they didn't meet you yet, right? Because you have to bring them the energy of, hey, I'm going to get you protected. I'm just going to teach you how to do it. Because remember, mortgage protection, it's still just a life insurance policy, whole life or term. Mortgage protection is a concept. We teach them how to protect their family members or themselves through these products, right? We're not selling product. We're selling them a concept of how to protect yourself. So the bigger the policy, the more the impact. That's probably one of my favorite sayings to tell an agent when they're like, well, it's going to be 350. I'm like, yeah. Do you understand what that means? Because if you don't, you need to tell yourself that, right? Do you understand what it means if you have to show a family a $350 Eagle Select or Living Promise for 40 grand? That means it's more important to them than most, because they have a bigger mortgage and they have health conditions or they're older, right? So you are bringing so much more impact to that home. And that's why you're going to get paid more, right? Because you did a proper job. So also look at that. And I want y'all to think of this too: larger impact, right? Or larger policy, larger impact. If you look at your APV and you're like, man, and because I went through this for when I first started, probably in my 6-month period, as getting started, I used to call Chris. I'm like, man, I write nothing but baby apps, right? I'm like, nothing but little 500, 600. And it hurt my feelings so bad when Chris goes, well, you're probably not bringing a lot of impact in the home. I'm like, what? But it wasn't, right? I wasn't really digging into the questions. I was embarrassed to ask them the health, right? The budget. And so just realize, if you're writing lower premium, right, and it's consistent, you probably need to work on your presentation and your impact in that home. Because, right, y'all want to know why Elijah, look at Elijah's apps, right? Elijah probably averages like I would say just 2,000 per policy, just from what I see him submitting, right? That man brings impact to the home. He's serious. He has tonality. He's funny. He's excited when he gets to show them the options, right? So when you get to a $230 policy, right, that's impact, because you're putting coverage in place that will change somebody's life. In fact, one of my clients on Tuesday that I called, an MIA lead, it was so sad. He's like, Joe, my wife passed away. We didn't have any coverage. I don't even know what to do because she handled all my bills. She said we had coverage, but I can't find anything. He goes, I'm about to lose everything. He goes, that's why I called this letter, because I thought maybe y'all can help me. So he's supposed to get back with me. I told him, hopefully, I told him to go look at his bank account, see if somebody, right, an insurance company is drafting out of it, and I can maybe help him find a policy. But and this is real impact that we're bringing to a home. That guy right there that I talked to, a $10,000 policy for $50 right now would mean the world to him. And he doesn't know. I hope he has it in place. He says he thinks he does, but I hope he has it in place. A $10,000 policy right now from Living Promise would mean the world to that man. That's the impact that we get to have on these folks. So just remember, you're supposed to be excited, is what I really want to give across, right? Like, don't be sad about large policies. And I think we kind of have that misconstrued, right? Like, oh man, I have to, right? I have a young case, Mickey. They're only 55, and I'm trying to get them a term, but I have to go Eagle Select because of health conditions. You should be excited, right? Like, it's going to be a bigger part. Well, it's going to be double the price. Yeah, you're welcome. You're going to bring impact, right? Like James' term, right, to the family, like, you're welcome. I still have a solution for you at 55 with a heart attack or a criminal record or whatever it may be, right? Like, we have solutions in so many different ways. You better be excited about being able to help a family, because if you bring that excitement, they're going to match your energy. And that's how you get oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you. They literally tell me that. right? Because we are excited. I'm excited. And here, it took me a while to understand that concept. So if you're not that excited about it right now, it's okay, right? But at least in the appointment, be excited. Learn to control your emotions and your energy in the appointment because it does matter, right? Like if you've ever sat with a family and you're like, man, I ran the script perfectly, I did everything, but they were like, they just straight up told me no. Might have been your energy, right? Might have been the way you did the presentation, right? So there's a little bit more to the script, right? Now I know the script, but how do I deliver the script? So what I would do, highly recommend y'all do this, is record yourselves and then just go back and listen to it. You don't have to send that one to anyone. Just listen to yourself. You'll be amazed of also you find stuff like with Troy, right? He was running an appointment like this, right? Like that looks stressed, right? So just keep your eye. You'll be surprised. Sometimes you're doing this. Sometimes you're just doing random stuff, right? Like fiddling with your fingers or something, right? Like I use my hands to also show options, right? When I'm talking about the accidental, I'm like my grandma passed away on Sunday, and then look, I go all the way to the other side of the screen, and she passed right, or she fell on Sunday and she passed away on Saturday, right? Like I'm giving gestures again. It's a long time, right? A whole week passed by. Even if it had been 11, 12 months down the road, guaranteed advantage still would have paid the policy, right? If it was because of the accident or injury, right? Like I'm giving, right? Use your gestures too, right? Like when I'm giving them coverage and I'm explaining it, it's like, hey, so right, if we get the 300,000, right? As 15 years go by, you maybe only owe 150,000. It still pays your wife the 300,000. So it also starts to fill the gap of life insurance that we don't have in place. So this is kind of like two birds with one stone for you, right? But I'm showing them all these gestures, right? And again, I'm excited. Like, look, right? I'm showing them. I'm like, wow, right? Your mortgage is 300,000. You pay it down to 150. It still pays the 300, and now it's filling the gap, right? So how are you presenting and how do you sound, right? Again, match their energy. Now you have control. Go to serious, right? Go to empathy. Go to serious, and go to excitement when you're showing the options, and it means a lot to them. I promise you, right? They want to feel safe, secure, and confident about what they're also doing, right? So if you don't sound confident, they're not going to sound confident about $150 payment that you're pitching to them, right? Because that's what we're still doing that, right? So they have to sound, or you have to sound confident for them because guess what? They don't know anything about this, right? So they have to feel really good that, right, that Rick, you're giving me the best options for me, right? So again, that energy means a lot. How do you come? And here, look, I'm married with 4 kids. Sometimes I don't have the energy. My kids got upset. Maybe me and my spouse, right, had an argument in the morning. So do I show up to the appointment and I don't have energy? That matters, right? You have to clear your head. We've done trainings on clear your head before your appointment. Take your life out of this and show up to the best version of you for that family because they deserve that. And that's how you're going to impact theirs and income. So anything on energy, right? Matching theirs, tones, right? Be excited, be sad. I think that's all we got. Next, we'll go into, and does anyone have any questions? Feel free to unmute.
Yeah, Joe, quick question. So, right, once you've gone through their health and their budget, what kind of a tonality are you using to get that response from them about what they think their situation is, right? Are you saying, hey, it looks like this is going to be a tough spot? Do you ask them that? I know you said just serious when you're going through the budget, but once you move over to asking those, like the NIPQ questions, right? Of, hey, where does this impact? Where does this emotional change happen?
That's
What
a good point.
tonality are you using there?
So that's still, I would still say depends on if they have health conditions. That's a great question, right? Because you probably want to mix serious with empathy at this part, right? Because if they have health conditions, I poke the bear, right? Because I'm gonna be like, hey, well, Mary, you've had this health condition, right? And um, so we're not working because of that. And then John, right? Budget's gone. If you are, she has nothing in her bank, right? Like, how does that make you feel? right? So that question started with serious, right? Like, hey, what do you have in place? How does that make you feel? And then they answer, but then now that's such a good question, Nate, right? So next, now I have to bring empathy to their answer, right? Because now the wife will usually say, well, not good, Joe, right? Like we don't have anything in place, right? And so now my energy changes to, and I understand like that. Yeah, you're right. Like that, based on what I see, right? It doesn't look good. And then I even pivot to him, like, John, how does that make you feel? Right now, I'm empathetic to their situation of there's nothing in the bank. She now knows she's in a bad spot, right? Because I put them there. That's my job. I had to put them there. I took them to that energy point, right? And now I have to match empathy, right? Because I don't want them to. So this is why it's so important. I love that question, Nate, because I don't want them to feel bad about it in a bad way to where they want to get off the appointment, right? So I want to bring empathy, right? Of, oh man, okay, I get it, right? And I can match that a lot, right? Because my wife doesn't work. I would be devastated if I'm gone tomorrow, my wife and kids can't stay in the home, right? So I
Sorry.
match that there, and then I'm gonna change it to, right, again, hey, I'm gonna ask the question, should we put something in place? They're always gonna say yes, right? And then it's boom, I get to excited. Hey, I get to solve that for you. I'm going to show you some options, right, that are going to do exactly what we have here. Duke, you have a question?
Kind of two real quick. The first is to caveat off what, sorry, I promised everybody that I'd use the word caveat at least once if I spoke to, I'm kidding. Are we using, and I know I'm probably relating in my head to the wrong kind of interviewing, but when we're doing that there, the empathy you're talking about, are we using, or do you, the successful people on the call, do you use a personalized empathy or a generalized empathy? I.e., do you ever give, if you do have something, we want to be genuine and not make things up, because if you tell a fib, it will come out later. But do you ever give personalized, hey, I went through that, or I did this, or my mom? Or is it a general empathy, like a lot of people go through that, and everybody nowadays is a little short on cash? Does my question there make sense, sir?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of my stories are all real, right? So like my grandmother's accident, that actually happened. She fell on a Sunday, hit her head, passed away on Saturday, right? So that's my real story. Feel free to use it, right? Until that happened, I've been here for 7 years. She passed away about 2.5, right? For 5 years, I had somebody else's story. I think I had Ryan Miller's story where his dad was walking his dog, tripped on a sprinkler, hit his rib on a curb, and he died I want to say like a week or a couple of days later from liquid in his lungs, right? Fluid in his lungs, right? So, I mean, there's lots of stories. You get, right. If you read the script too, you ask them questions where they can tell you a story, right? Have y'all had anyone in this situation? Yeah. Then you get to leverage theirs. Sometimes they'll tell you one. In fact, like that one, he was telling me that he had a family member pass away. So also another reason, I know all this information because I asked so many questions about their budget. So one of the reasons they only have $1,500 in their bank account too is they just had a family member pass away a month ago that didn't have coverage, so he also coughed up $3,000, right? So we also leverage, right? We don't want to be in that position. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to leave her in that position. So find stories, right? If not, a general one's fine, right? But if you have a personal one, again, that makes you more relatable. And it doesn't have to be you personal, but right, we all have, unfortunately, friends, family members that have passed away, right? That either had coverage or didn't have coverage. And it goes both ways, right? Like if they had coverage, great. That's a great story to tell. Like, hey, my grandmother passed away. My aunt received a $200,000 check, right? Okay. So, so use either one. They're both going to do that job of relating to them.
Then the second part is just a very technical one. I was trying to look back through everything I studied. Can mortgage insurance, the mortgage insurance we sell, can that cover, since it's not like normal life, can that cover deployed active duty soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines in combat environments?
So not in combat environments. So, and confirm that again, right? Don't take information from us. Call the carriers. They'll tell you they got riders and all kinds of stuff if they do. But typically, if they're in the combat zone, it will not cover. There's other coverage in place provided by the government for them, as far as I remember. Right. But if they're not, yeah, exactly. Right. But if it's just deployed or regular stuff here, right, they're okay. But again, get that answer from whoever, right? Because every carrier and every policy is going to be different. So get that answer directly from the insurance carrier, not us.
Thank you, sir.
Uh-huh. Any other questions on energy? All right. So this next one for me is fun. Oh, somebody said something?
Oh, yes, that was me.
Right.
If I may, like, I remember earlier in the base camp training, a lot of it was about like helping clients like get the get the coverage they need for like the least amount of coverage that'll get the purposes of what they need done. And then I'm also hearing that like the more coverage, the greater the impacts. I guess I'm just a little thrown off by the mixed message right there, and I'm just trying to figure.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So it's not mixed messaging, right? So even though they're bigger policy, that's the cheapest we can get them. Right? Because sometimes they're $300 and it's only 6 months, 9 months worth of coverage. It's only a $8,000, $10,000 policy sometimes, depending on their age and health conditions. So they are the cheapest. They're just right. Just realize a lot of times, because you have that concept of, hey, it should be cheap. Cheap in your head may be $80, $50, but based on their health condition and age, cheap is $300.
So
right?
it's a matter of perspective.
Correct, right? So understand that our job is to get them the most amount of coverage for the cheapest amount of premium. But it's different for everyone, right? A 32-year-old looking for 100 grand versus for a 81-year-old looking for $8,000 worth of coverage. It's quadruple the price, right? So it's still the cheapest. It's just more impact, right? Because again, they're older and they're sicker. So that means it's harder to get coverage. So you're doing the right thing, right? So it's the same, right? It's just realize if it's more expensive, it is more impact. If it's cheaper, they're probably a 22-year-old kid that's $30 a payment, right? Like, yeah, it's great, but more than likely, right? Younger folks live a little bit longer, right? Versus an older folk. And again, we don't know that, but just realize that it's the same. It's one of their own. They're one of the same.
Joe, which goes back to why the FIF is so important, which is what you're talking about. Because if you don't have that conversation, you won't be able to have the other one.
Yep.
And I would just challenge you to take out the word cheap and expensive from your vocab, because it's just impact and it's just what's most affordable for them.
Yep.
And
That's what we
don't
do,
think
no matter
with-
what we're looking for.
Yeah, don't think with your budget. That's a lot of the problem is you're thinking what's your budget would be, and it's not the same for everybody. It's all perspective. So that's why new agents typically sell smaller policies, because they're thinking with their small mind of not understanding the impact that they're giving to the client.
Yeah, like I said, that guy that I talked to on Tuesday, right? That's a MIA lead. Man, he would kill right now for a $10,000 policy because he thinks he's going to lose the house.
Oh man!
Right? The impact is I mean, this is again, it's serious, right? That's why you should be excited that you have a solution in our bag, right? With all our carriers and products that we can still impact that home. And again, right? If it's a bigger policy, it's because it's a bigger impact. It's more important at that point. So
what words would you use specifically, like what Amber said, hey, get cheap and expensive out of your vocabulary, to help build that mindset of this isn't cheap or expensive. This is
I just don't use either one of those words.
You don't say anything.
I say only for everything. This is only this, right? And so that's what that's a great question. It's going to lead into the next topic, right? Which is words that are killing your sales. And man, I hope y'all take a lot of notes on this part, because this happens every single day to all of us, and we don't realize we're saying it. So I would recommend you record yourself, because I bet you have a whole bunch of these words And if you don't, you sometimes just create that habit out of nowhere, which is insane. So the first one I'm going to start with is or. You got to be super careful with or, because we offer multiple applications to clients, right? You should get them the accidental and whatever other coverage you're getting them. When I adopted it, it was insane. I was writing 2 apps every single home, right, per person. So it was 4 apps in a home. Jeff, I was so excited. I'm like, sweet, I got this, 4 apps every single home. It was like 12 apps, 16 apps a week. I was crushing it. I don't know where 6 months later it was, I was only selling an accidental or I was only selling the other one, whatever I was offering. I'm like, I can't get multiple apps anymore. Somewhere I picked up the word or. So random, right? And then I just stuck with it and I didn't even realize it. So every time I was telling them, right, like, hey, look, we're going to do the accidental, or we can look at this coverage. For whatever reason, I just added or, right? So what I want to teach all in this is doing something every single day is very routine, but you will add and take away things in your routine and not even realize it. That's why we have to consistently, right, record ourselves, work on our appointments. So somewhere randomly, I just picked up or and I added it into my vocabulary there. So all of a sudden, it was either I'm going to do the accidental or I'm going to do the mortgage protection. And I could, for the life of me, Rick, I couldn't figure out why it was 1 app ever. I'm like, 2 apps. I'm like, dude, I was crushing it with 4, right? And I could not find it until I heard it in a training. They're like, hey, are you saying or? And I'm like, oh my God. I went back and I listened to myself, and sure enough, every single appointment I had added the word or, right? So or is very dangerous. Do not say, hey, we do this or that, because we don't. Okay, we do a combination, we bundle, right? We get right, and I love here, Duke, right? As I put everyone in the herd mentality there, right? As I, hey, everyone, most families, they do this and that, right? They do the accidental and they usually add the accidental, right? And I'm very careful with that because I do not want them to only get accidental. Accidental is not the best coverage. It's a great price, amazing coverage, but we want to make sure, I don't care how they pass away, they have coverage, right? So it's always, we add, right? Everyone usually adds this coverage to the main one, right? And listen to what I'm saying, to the main one, because the main one, right? So like yesterday, they both loved the accidental. They're like, yeah, let's do the 250 for both of us. And I think we're okay there. Nope. I'm like, hey, so Duke, I just want to make sure I'm servicing you properly and I'm giving you the best guidance here. So that one, remember, is an accidental. Normally we partner that policy with this one because this next one is the one that actually covers you no matter what. And you told me you want to make sure your wife is in a really good spot. That's the only way she would be in a really good spot, because no matter what, the 50,000 will pay out. Then if it's an accident, right, God forbid it is, we would pay off the entire. He goes, okay, well, let's do that. So that went from me having a $97 a month policy or right home to 156. But it was because I impacted. It had nothing to do with price. I want to take care of you the right way. And the right way is not just accidental. The right way is adding accidental, because God forbid it's an accident, everything's taken care of. But no matter what, I have this coverage in place, right? So listen to all those words we just said, right? Additional, the main coverage, we add this. Families usually do this, right? It's never or. So or hurt me a lot for 6 months. So be careful with or.
Joe, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Accidental, you need help for that, right?
For the guaranteed advantage, which is the one I highly recommend, yes. If not, you can only write 60 and below. With Americo and MM have an accidental, but it still has some health requirements, so it's not as good as the guaranteed advantage, right? That has no health requirements.
When you say 60 and below, you mean age-wise?
Say age-wise, correct.
Okay, thank
to
you.
write the policy, right? They got to be 60 or below to write the policy.
Thank you.
Great question. Right. So next word, right, is only. Now, only is a tricky one because you can use it on both benefits, right? So when you're explaining accidental, do not use only, right? It only pays if it's an accident. it only covers you if, right, if you die of an accident, right? No, when I'm talking about an accidental, it's going to cover you, right? Whether you're at home, vacation, if it's an accident, you're going to pass away. If you have a car accident, right? Given my grandma's story, right? It's going to be great coverage. You pass away of the accident, we're paying off the entire mortgage, right? It's going to be the cheaper option that we add to the other coverage. Never in there did I say this is only an accidental and it's only, I promise you, if you're pitching accidentals and you hear, yeah, I don't think that's for us, Jeff, because it only pays if it's an accident. You said only somewhere in that presentation. That's where they got it from. They mirrored you, right? So do not say only when you're talking about extra coverages or bundling packages, right? Or anything, right? If you're doing a graded policy, do not say it only pays after 24 months. That's not true, right? For the first 24 months, you're covered with the full coverage if it's an accident, right? And then after the 24 months, right, you'll be covered with the full benefits, right? I don't only say you're going to have coverage after 24 months. Do not say that, right? Only will hurt you. But now, how do you use only the proper way? Price, right? I don't care what I'm showing. In fact, they chuckle when I say 350. It's only 355 and 86 cents. They're like, only. I'm like, yeah, for the 10,000, right? And we got exactly the coverage you want, right? And they're like, yeah, I guess so, right? But that's where you. So for pricing, I always say only. It's only $86. It's only 155. If we put all four together, right? Yeah, it's only going to be for all four coverages, right? And listen to this. It's all four coverages. So God forbid both of you pass away, your kids get $1 million. If not, no matter what, both of you, right? If an accident, it's 500,000 plus the other one's going to pay out as well, right? So you're going to have 750, whatever it may be, right? And it's only 350 between all four of the policies. Only can be very beneficial, right? So use it there. Both, right? Make sure you're using both, right? Like, hey, we're going to look at both of these coverages, right? And then you can apply for both and have the coverage in place that you want. That's how we're going to accomplish exactly what you want, by getting both, right? So that's a really big one together, right? Most families usually get a combination of these together. So we have the coverage in place for y'all, right? Don't use the word separate policies, little stuff like that will hurt you. You want to use that. And then the next ones are kind of like if they're getting approved or declined, right? Don't say stuff like it's hard to get this coverage unless you want to push them somewhere. So if you've booked an appointment and you know they're not healthy and they're a little bit older, when you're going through the script on purpose, right? You're saying, hey, the full mortgage payoff for you is the hardest to get qualified for and the most expensive, right? Now I use them as weapons, right? Now I said, hey, it's the hardest to get qualified and the most expensive, option one. Option two is a little bit easier, still a little bit pricey. The one I normally see for you, right, where everyone goes, right, is going to be the equity protection, and we bundle that with an accidental to have plenty of coverage. Guess what? Well, it doesn't matter what I say the rest of my presentation or when I show options, guess what option they're going to tell me they want? Because I leverage it once I go through their budget. So Nathan, remember option 1, 2, and 3. Which one do you think is going to be best for you? Joe, we're probably going to look at option 3. Great. That's what I had in place for y'all. Let's look at that. Right? They think they're in control, but right, we made sure we were guiding them to the right place where we can get them coverage, right? Because they were 65, they had a heart attack a month ago, right? Or whatever it may be. I can't get them the full mortgage payoff based on the information I already have. So I don't even want them thinking of that, right? Because then they're going to say, well, I thought this was to pay off my entire house. You ever get that? That's why, right? And then so the next one is decline and the word not approved. Guess what? You're going to get declined. You don't have to use the word decline. People get sad when you tell them, hey, Haddon, so it looks like it declined you. Looks like they didn't approve you, right? No, I just say nicer words, right? So, hey, Haddon, looks like they saw something that they weren't okay with. So we're going to go with the next carrier, Mutual of Omaha, right? Or, hey, looks like that one's not taking. We're just going to pivot to this next one, right? I don't tell them they got declined, they didn't get the coverage, right? Because then they're gonna be like, well, fine, okay, bye, right? You'll lose the client there, right? Just great words of, hey, looks like they saw something that they didn't like, so we're just gonna pivot to someone that I know that should take you, right? Again, I'm making sure, right, that verbally, right, they're okay when we're pivoting to the next thing because they don't want to get declined. Nobody wants to get declined. Those are ugly words. And then I would just say careful with sentences that, again, right, y'all heard me say the most expensive, right, or the hardest to qualify. Be careful when you're presenting options and you're saying words, right, like, hey, so this next one, right, if you're going through the options and they've already told you you want option one and you're getting to the full mortgage payoff for the $200 because you think is expensive, you say, hey, so this next one's is a little more expensive. Don't say that. It's only 350, right? So don't say it's a little more expensive because guess what they're going to say? Well, that one sounds expensive. Again, if they're saying words like that, more than likely you've said it somewhere in your script. So be careful with using, right? More expensive, right? You have to learn these words so that you can leverage them for you. Because again, if you know that they're not healthy and we can't get them the full mortgage payoff, you want to leverage the word, right, more expensive and harder to qualify so that they're thinking already where you need them to go, right? Because remember, our job is to get them the most amount of coverage for the least amount of premium based on their age, health, and budget. So we don't pick anything. We're just really great consultants of finding the right product for them and price. I want y'all to think about that, right? So sometimes and I have to get off in a minute, but I want y'all to think about this. Sometimes we're trying to go get them the best price policy, but it's usually not the best one for them, right? Because you think you're trying to get them a cheaper policy, but the cheapest policy sometimes ain't the best, right? Because they won't qualify. Because usually they've been declined by someone and you're trying to pivot really hard, right, to another term. Guess what? If they got declined by 2 carriers on terms, it's time to move to equity protection and be excited about them because you have more options, right? So I hope that one brought a lot of value to y'all, right? Be super careful with these words because they will kill your sales. I highly, highly recommend. Again, getting on these calls don't just make you a better producer. It's applying what we do. I highly recommend the next 2 or 3 appointments you run, record yourselves. You do not have to send them to anyone. Just go listen to them and try to make them video, right? They should be running a Zoom appointment anyways and record it, right? Just tell them it's for business purposes, whatever. And you'll be amazed of what your face is doing, what your hand gestures are doing, right? What the words you're using, because it makes a big difference. And we want to make sure, right, you can help more families. So that's what we got for y'all. I hope that brings a lot of value.